Ai,
Segura, segura!
puxa, velho.
Cuidado com a
Tá
mão.
vindo, tá vindo!
Vamos laçar, vamos laçar. Essa, mais um pouco.
Ele vai virar.
In a remote corner of the Amazon, an old man was laughed at for his bait, a stinking, rotting concoction of fermented fruit and secret herbs. They called him a fool, a madman. They said he was fishing for ghosts. But in 2015, that same crazy bait landed a 300-pound Arapaima, a prehistoric monster that had terrorized the local village for years. This is the story of a man who refused to give up on tradition, a fish that was thought to be uncatchable, and a secret that was almost lost to time. The Rio Negro is a river of black water and golden legends, a river that is home to a creature that has been swimming in its depths since the time of the dinosaurs. The Arapaima, a living fossil, a fish that can grow to be 10 feet long and weigh over 400 pounds. A fish that breathes air, a fish that can survive in water with almost no oxygen, a fish that is a perfect killing machine. For the people of the small village of Santa Isabel, the Arapaima was more than just a fish. It was a demon, a monster, a creature that had taken their livestock, their pets, and, some whispered, their children. They had tried everything to catch it. They had used modern rods and reels. They had used nets. They had used dynamite. But the demon was too smart, too powerful, too elusive. It was a ghost, a shadow, a nightmare that haunted their days and their nights. But one man was not afraid. An old man named Mateo, a man who had lived his entire life on the river, a man who knew its secrets, its rhythms, its magic, a man who had a secret of his own, a secret bait, a bait that had been passed down through his family for generations, a bait that was made from fermented mangoes, a special kind of river weed, and a secret blend of herbs that only he knew. It was a bait that smelled like death, a bait that no sane fish would ever touch. The other fishermen laughed at him. They called him Mateo the Mad. They said he was wasting his time. They said he was fishing for ghosts. But Mateo didn't care. He knew the secret of the bait. He knew that it was not a smell of death. It was a smell of life, a smell that mimicked the scent of a dying fish, a smell that was irresistible to a predator like the Arapaima. He prepared his bait. He said a silent prayer to the river spirits. He cast his line. He was not just fishing, he was performing a ritual, a ceremony, a dance with the demon. He waited. The sun was a hammer, the air was a wet blanket, the river was a mirror of fire, the world was a furnace. And then the water exploded. The Arapaima was a torpedo, a missile, a force of nature. It hit the bait with the force of a freight train. The line screamed, the rod bent in half. Mateo was almost pulled from his small wooden canoe. He held on. He was a man of the river, a man of 100 years of knowledge. He would not be defeated. The battle was epic, a clash of titans, a war between a man and a monster, a dance between life and death. The Arapaima leaped from the water. It was a magnificent, terrifying sight, a creature of raw power and prehistoric beauty. It was a dragon, a serpent, a god. It thrashed, it rolled, it tried to break the line, it tried to break the man, it tried to break the spirit of the river. But Mateo was the spirit of the river. He was the keeper of its secrets, the guardian of its magic, the master of its demons. He fought the fish for hours. His body was a symphony of pain. His muscles were on fire, his hands were raw and bleeding. But he did not give up. He could not give up. He was fighting for his village, for his family, for his honor, for the memory of his ancestors. He brought the fish to the shore. It was a monster, a true monster, a fish that was bigger than his canoe, a fish that was the stuff of legends, a fish that was the demon of the Rio Negro. But when he looked into its eyes, he did not see a demon. He saw a survivor, a warrior, a king, a creature that was as old as the river itself, a creature that had a right to live. He knew he could not kill it. He could not take its life. He could not be the one to end a story that had been written over millions of years. He took a picture. He took a measurement. And then he did something that no one in his village had ever done before. He let it go. He watched as the king of the Rio Negro swam away, back to the depths, back to its home, back to its secrets. He had not conquered it. He had honored it. He had respected it. He had become a part of its story. And in doing so, he had become a legend himself. The man who had caught a demon. The man who had set it free. The man who had shown his village that the river was not something to be feared, but something to be respected. That the monsters were not demons, but kings. That the magic was not a secret, but a gift. The story of Mateo and the Arapaima became a legend, a story that was told and retold, a story that was passed down from generation to generation, a story that changed the way the people of Santa Isabel saw the river, the fish, and themselves. They were no longer afraid. They were no longer victims. They were guardians. They were keepers of the magic. They were the people of the river, forever and ever, in the heart of the Amazon, in the heart of the world, in the heart of a story that will never end, the story of a man, a fish, and a secret that was almost lost to time, the secret of the Rio Negro, the secret of the Arapaima, the secret of life itself, the secret that is waiting to be discovered by all of us. If we are only brave enough to listen, to believe, to become a part of the story of the river, the story of the king, the story of the magic, forever. The release of the 300-pound Arapaima was a turning point for Santa Isabel. The village, once paralyzed by fear, was now filled with a new sense of purpose, a new sense of pride, a new sense of hope. But the story was far from over. The demon had been unmasked, the king had been revealed, and the world was about to take notice. A young, ambitious biologist from the University of Sao Paulo, Dr. Isabella Rossi, heard the story. She was a woman of science, a woman of logic, a woman who did not believe in demons or magic. But she did believe in data, and the data was telling her that something extraordinary had happened on the Rio Negro, a 300-pound Arapaima. A fish of that size was a scientific anomaly, a relic from a bygone era, a creature that was thought to be extinct in that part of the Amazon, and it had been caught and released by an old man with a crazy bait. Dr. Rossi had to know more. She had to see it for herself. She had to understand the science behind the legend. She traveled to Santa Isabel, a journey that took her days, a journey that took her to the heart of the Amazon, to the heart of the story. She found Mateo, the old man with the wise eyes and the gentle smile, the man who had become a living legend. She asked him about the bait, the secret, the magic. Mateo smiled. He did not talk about magic. He talked about the river. He talked about the fish. He talked about the balance. He talked about the knowledge that had been passed down through his family for generations, the knowledge of the seasons, the knowledge of the currents, the knowledge of the plants, the knowledge of the fish. He showed her the bait, the fermented mangoes, the river weed, the secret herbs. He explained to her the science behind it, The way the fermentation process created a unique blend of amino acids and enzymes, the way the scent mimicked the smell of a dying fish, the way it triggered a predatory response in the Arapaima. Dr. Rossi was stunned. This was not magic. This was science, a science that was as sophisticated as anything she had ever seen in a laboratory, a science that was based on centuries of observation, of trial and error, of a deep, intuitive understanding of the natural world. She realized that she was not just studying a fish, she was studying a culture, a way of life, a system of knowledge that was as valuable as any scientific discovery, a system of knowledge that was in danger of being lost forever. She decided to stay, to work with Matteo, to document his knowledge, to combine his traditional wisdom with her modern science, to create a new kind of conservation, a conservation that was based on partnership, on respect, on a shared love for the river. They started a project, the Arapaima Project, a project to study and protect the Arapaima of the Rio Negro. They tagged the king. They tracked his movements. They studied his diet, his behavior, his genetics. They discovered that he was not the only one. There were other giants in the river, a whole population of them, a population that had been hidden, a population that had been protected by the river's secrets, by Matteo's knowledge. The project was a huge success. It became a model for conservation around the world, a model that showed that traditional knowledge and modern science could work together, that they could be more powerful together than they could ever be apart. But with success came a new kind of danger, a danger that was far more insidious than any demon fish, a danger that came in the form of a corporation, a multinational fishing company, a company that saw the Arapaima not as a king, but as a commodity, a product to be harvested, a resource to be exploited. The company, Amazonian Gold, arrived in Santa Isabel with a fleet of modern fishing boats, with high-tech gear, with a team of professional fishermen. They were there to cash in on the legend, to catch the giants, to turn the river's magic into money. They offered the villagers jobs, money, a piece of the action. They promised them a better life, a life of prosperity, a life of progress. Some of the villagers were tempted. They were poor, they were struggling. They saw the company as a way out, a way to a better future. But Matteo saw the truth. He saw the greed, the destruction, the death. He knew that the company would not stop until they had taken every last fish, every last giant, every last piece of magic from the river. He had to stop them. He had to fight them. He had to save the river. Again. He called a meeting of the village. He stood before them, an old man with a powerful voice, a man who had earned their respect, their trust, their love. He did not talk about demons or magic. He talked about the future. He talked about their children. He talked about the river. He talked about the balance. He talked about the choice they had to make. "The river is our mother," he said. "It gives us life. It gives us food. It gives us everything. We cannot sell our mother. We cannot sell our soul. We cannot sell our future." His words were simple, but they were powerful. They were the words of a man who knew the truth of the river, the truth of the heart. The villagers listened. They understood. They made their choice. They chose the river. They chose their future. They chose to fight. They stood with Matteo. They stood against the company. They blockaded the river. They protested. They fought. It was a battle of David and Goliath, a battle of a small village against a giant corporation, a battle for the soul of the Amazon. The company fought back. They used their money, their power, their influence. They tried to break the villagers, to divide them, to crush them. But they could not break them. They could not divide them. They could not crush them. The villagers were united. They were strong. They were the people of the river, and they would not be defeated. The standoff lasted for months. The world watched. The media descended. The story of the small village that was fighting a giant corporation became a global sensation, a symbol of resistance, a symbol of hope. The pressure mounted on the company, on the government, on the world. The world was demanding justice. The world was demanding that the river be protected. The world was demanding that the magic be saved. And then the king appeared, the 300-pound Arapaima, the king of the Rio Negro. He swam into the middle of the standoff. He swam between the villagers and the company. He was a wall, a living, breathing, magnificent wall. He was not a demon. He was a guardian. He was not a monster. He was a king. He was not a commodity. He was the spirit of the river. And in that moment, everyone understood. The company, the government, the world. They understood that this was not just a river. It was a sacred place. That this was not just a fish. It was a king. That this was not just a story. It was a legend. The company retreated. The government created a protected area. The river was saved. The magic was preserved. The king had won. Mateo, standing on the shore, watched as the king swam away. Back to the depths, back to his home, back to his secrets. He smiled, a smile of a man who had seen it all, a man who had fought the good fight, a man who had kept the faith. He was an old man now. His body was weak, but his spirit was strong. He had passed on his knowledge. He had passed on his secret. He had passed on his love for the river. He had passed on the magic. The Arapaima project continued. Dr. Rossi stayed. She became a part of the village, a part of the family, a part of the story. And the legend of Mateo and the Arapaima lived on, a legend that was told and retold, a legend that inspired a new generation of guardians, a new generation of scientists, a new generation of believers, a legend that taught the world that the greatest secrets are not hidden in laboratories, but in the heart of the river, that the greatest magic is not in a formula, but in the love for the natural world, that the greatest heroes are not the ones who conquer, but the ones who protect. The river is calling, the king is waiting, the magic is alive, and the story continues forever and ever. In the heart of the Amazon, in the heart of the world, in the heart of all who believe, the secret is out, the magic is real, and the river will never be the same. Thanks to an old man, a crazy bait, and a fish that was not a demon, but a king, the king of the Rio Negro, the king of the Amazon, the king of our hearts, forever. The years that followed were a golden age for Santa Isabel. The village became a beacon of hope for the entire Amazon, a model of sustainable development, a place where humans and nature lived in harmony, a place where the magic was real. But the world is a complex place, and the forces of greed and destruction are relentless. They do not give up easily. They just change their tactics. They just find new ways to exploit, new ways to destroy. A new threat emerged, a threat that was far more insidious than a fishing company, a threat that was invisible, a threat that came from within, a disease. A strange, new disease that was affecting the Arapaima, a disease that was causing them to become aggressive, to attack each other, to attack humans. The Ganesh king, the 300-pound giant that Mateo had released, was the first to show the symptoms. He became a true demon, a monster, a creature of pure, unadulterated rage. He attacked boats. He attacked fishermen. He created a reign of terror on the Rio Negro. The villagers were terrified. They did not understand. What had happened to their king? What had happened to their guardian? What had happened to the magic? Dr. Rossi, now a world-renowned expert on the Arapaima, was baffled. She had never seen anything like it. She took samples. She ran tests. She consulted with experts from around the world, but no one could figure it out. The disease was a mystery, a puzzle, a curse. The village was on the brink of collapse. The tourism that had been their lifeline was gone. The fishermen were afraid to go on the river. The balance had been broken, the magic was gone, and it had been replaced by fear, by chaos, by death. Mateo, now a very old man, watched in despair. He had saved the river once, but he did not know how to save it from this. He did not know how to fight a ghost, a demon that was not a fish, but a disease. He went to the river. He prayed. He asked for guidance. He asked for a sign. He asked for a miracle. And the river answered. He had a dream, a vision. He saw his ancestors. They were speaking to him. They were telling him the secret of the disease, the secret of the cure. The disease was not a disease. It was a poison that had been introduced into the river, a poison that was driving the fish mad. The cure was not a medicine. It was a plant, a rare, sacred plant that grew deep in the jungle, a plant that was known to the ancient shamans, a plant that had the power to neutralize the poison, to heal the fish, to restore the balance. Mateo woke up. He knew what he had to do. He had to find the plant. He had to save the river. He had to save the king. He was an old man. He was weak. He could barely walk. But he was a man on a mission, a man with a purpose, a man with a secret. He went into the jungle, alone. He was not a shaman. He was not a botanist. He was a fisherman. But he was a man of the river, and the river was guiding him. He walked for days. He was lost. He was hungry. He was on the brink of death. But he did not give up. He kept going. He was following the call of the river, the call of the ghosts, the call of the magic. And then he found it. The plant. A small, unassuming plant with a single purple flower. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. It was a symbol of hope, a symbol of life, a symbol of the magic of the Amazon. He took the plant. He brought it back to the village. He prepared the cure. He went to the river. He called to the king. The king came. He was a monster, a demon, a creature of pure rage. He attacked Mateo's boat. He tried to kill him. But Mateo was not afraid. He threw the cure into the water. The king ate it. And then something miraculous happened. The king stopped. He became calm. The rage left his eyes. The demon was gone. The king was back. He looked at Mateo. He recognized him. He remembered him. He was the man who had saved him, the man who had honored him, the man who had loved him. He swam to Mateo's boat. He nudged it, gently. It was a thank you, a sign of respect, a promise. The king was healed. The river was saved. The magic was restored. But the story was not over. The poison was still in the river, and there was only one way to find its source, to follow the king. Dr. Rossi, using the tracking device they had placed on the king years ago, followed him. He led them on a journey up the river, a journey into the heart of darkness, a journey to a place that was not on any map, a place that was hidden from the world, a place of pure evil, a secret laboratory, a laboratory that was run by a rogue scientist, a scientist who had been working for ChemCorp, the company that Jed and Billy Stone had exposed years ago. the company that had not been destroyed, but had simply gone underground. The scientist was a madman, a man who was obsessed with creating a new kind of weapon, a biological weapon, a weapon that could be used to control the world's food supply, a weapon that was based on a genetically modified version of the Arapaima disease. He had been testing his weapon on the Rio Negro. He had been poisoning the river. He had been turning the fish into monsters. He had been creating an army of demons. He was about to unleash his weapon on the world. He was about to create a global pandemic, a pandemic that would make the Black Death look like a common cold. But he had not counted on a few things. He had not counted on the resilience of the river. He had not counted on the wisdom of an old fisherman. He had not counted on the loyalty of a king. Matteo, Dr. Rossi, and a team of Brazilian special forces stormed the laboratory. It was a scene from a James Bond movie, a battle between good and evil, a battle for the fate of the world. The scientist was captured. The laboratory was destroyed. The weapon was secured. The world was saved. And it was all thanks to an old man, a crazy bait, and a fish that was not a demon, but a king who had not only saved his river, but had saved the world. Matteo became a global hero, a symbol of the power of one person to make a difference, a symbol of the wisdom of traditional knowledge, a symbol of the magic of the Amazon. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He traveled the world. He met with kings and presidents. He told his story, the story of the river, the story of the king, the story of the magic. But he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the river. He never forgot the village. He never forgot the people. He returned to Santa Isabel. He lived out the rest of his days in peace. He died in his sleep, an old man with a smile on his face, a man who had lived a life of purpose, a man who had made a difference, a man who had become a legend. His story is a reminder that the world is full of magic, that the river is full of secrets, that the greatest heroes are not the ones with the most power, but the ones with the most love. The love for the river, the love for the fish, the love for the world. The river is calling. The king is waiting. The magic is alive. And the story continues forever and ever, in the heart of the Amazon, in the heart of the world, in the heart of all who believe. The secret is out. The magic is real, and the world will never be the same. Thanks to an old man, a crazy bait, and a fish that was not a demon, but a king, the king of the Rio Negro, the king of the Amazon, the king of our hearts, the king who saved the world forever.